It's like people offending you right and left, and they don't even know how. The irony is palpable. It's the stupidest thing in the world, but yet you hold fast to your pride, your false pride, and your rebellious nature. And it's tough to contend with it. It really is, and this is why I say it's hard to be human. And the weight of the cross gets heavy at times, but there's no other way around this thing. If you don't confront it, then there's no fixing to do. You can't ever fix anything. You're not really God's friend if you don't jump into the fray, the pool of humanity, and carry your fair share weight of the cross. 21st century social, political, and economic reality is little more than a pyramid of puppetry. Physics dictates that when a chain is pulled too hard, the links snap. I already talked about this. Suicide by cop, whereby an individual forces another to kill them. In this case, it's the cops, right? Suicide by God, whereby an individual forces God to condemn them to hell. That's it. They're being forced. Like I talked about, all those people that would be miserable. If there was justice on earth and we were all as equals, there's so many people that would be miserable. And who do you think's going to hell? By their own decisions, their own choices. They're condemning themselves to hell. So they're committing suicide by God in that sense. The more one has, the more one has to lose. The less one has, the more one has to gain. So here's another positive way. If you don't have much, worldly wise, wealth, materials, money, whatever in this world, the bright side of that is that you don't have a lot to lose. So you can't be too afraid of losing it. Yeah, you might fear never having, like Jesus said. That's why I say I don't see myself as much different from a multi-billionaire. Because we're both living in fear. The billionaire is living in fear they're going to lose their stuff, their money, somehow, some grave misfortune. And the poor fear they're never going to have anything. So yeah, we're both in fear. So why trade one fear for the other? I don't see any great benefit to say being a multi-billionaire or to just struggling one day at a time to get by. You see? I want things to change for everybody. That would make me feel better. If I saw the least of men, those that are hemorrhaging out, they're going to die out on the streets tonight. Okay, if I saw those wounds bound, then I could feel good about going somewhere from here, materialistically speaking. But beyond that, I don't get it. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Economic progress defined in a nutshell. Steady increase in currency worth due to society realizing easier and easier methods of supplying the things demanded. So simple. Economic policy and understanding could be so simply understood. If we try, you can't be afraid to try. To try. You can't just believe, oh no, it's got to get into a lot of complex minutia, and we got to talk about the gross domestic product and growing the economy and all this obscure stuff and credit availability and all this stuff. Look, it should happen naturally. It doesn't need to be tweaked and forced and directed artificially. It just needs to stop being interfered with. Let the markets work. Let supply and demand work. True supply and demand. Set the damn captives free through doing that, through gradual progress, increasing the worth of your currency, lowering your cost of living, raising the worth of your currency, brings prosperity for everybody. That's how it works. You don't need cost of living adjustments. You don't need pay increases. That's all it takes. It happens organically and naturally if you let it. But all these people don't let it. They don't want it to work. That they don't create a wealth disparity that benefits them by letting it work. And all those people's jobs that depend on the problem persisting, God help them. If they're not saying, yeah, I'm willing, even if it means my job being sacrificed, I'm willing that the problems get solved. Because we're talking life and death, and we're talking about my conscience and my soul, where I go from here. Standing before my Creator and answering for my philosophy, my belief system, my mindset, those truths I hold, okay, that I would fight and die and kill for, okay? Better have some substance, folks. Better be ready to have the problem solved, even if it means your job security is at stake here. You don't want to be evil. Regarding the brazen, undeniable push to irreconcilably irreconcilably divide the American people. And just as I know what the hell I'm talking about within the context of deliberately fostered division, they, quote they, that is the grand puppeteers or the money masters of misery, know what the hell they are doing. They seek to murder themselves at the hands of their own constituents, aka suicide through and by madness. That's what they're doing. It's the same suicide by God thing. They're letting human beings, they're going to keep pushing the envelope, keep rebelling, say, I don't care if it costs my life, I'm a kamikaze pilot, because I know if the truth comes out, if we have justice prevailing in the land, okay, I'd rather be dead. I'd rather go to hell and be condemned. That's how they're behaving, and that's pretty tough. That they've made themselves pretty unapproachable, okay, by having that prideful, falsely prideful attitude, that rebellious attitude against the very laws of the universe, the immutable laws of the universe, the laws of God, the proper laws that man is supposed to embody and to adhere to, embrace, ethics and morals, stuff that makes sense, logic, and being willing to do, let's sit down and do the math. You don't have to be intellectual to know 2 + 2, okay, equals 4, right? That's what I'm talking about. But yet there's people that will confuse it and they just want to make everything complicated, and so that's what they do. They don't want people to see clearly. They don't want them to have the attention put on them. Say, I'm the troublemaker, so I'm conflating these issues, and I'm intentionally mixing them up, so that you're off balance. You're discombobulated. That's what they like. They like a discombobulated population because you're disempowered. You lack self-confidence. You say, well, I'm just not sure about this. And it's so hard to understand things the way that they've been put forth. They've been convoluted intentionally here by these people. They want to direct me into the path of excruciating minutia when really the nuts and bolts of understanding economics is very simple. Let's talk supply and demand and why things are supposed to get cheaper as we find easier and easier methods of producing the things that we demand, that we not only need but the things we want. That's why you're supposed to see prosperity and a rising tide of prosperity across the board. Help people to understand. And all you people that profess to hate crony capitalism, you better start speaking out a lot louder and a lot more concisely and coherently to your adversaries, the devout and rabid communists out there called Antifa. Help them to know that, yeah, you agree that bailout of '08 was wrong. And here's why. You would have seen a market correction, okay? So if you see a lot of these socialists, they believe they're the good guys. They believe they're the good Americans, the good egalitarians. And they're mixed up. They don't understand that true capitalism is supply and demand capitalism. And it produces wealth and prosperity across the board. Okay, that crony capitalism delivers the opposite, and that and that you're on the same page as them. Find some common ground, okay, to have these commonalities that we have, that we agree that this causes wealth and income disparity. It's fascist, that it causes poverty. Help them understand that you get it, and that you get the need for the welfare, that the government created that need. So they are culpable. They are responsible because they've been remiss. They've been negligent at doing what they're supposed to do, protecting the interests of not some of the American people, all of the American people. So help people understand, for crying out loud, that you're on the same page. Call out crony capitalism and help them to understand and decipher and distinguish, the difference in these philosophies and how they're antithetical to one another. And they produce the opposite results. That crony capitalism is hands down, bar none, the best way to produce rabid communism. And how this is being done deliberately, by deliberation by these people. They're sinister. They're cunning. And their diabolism reaches the highest heavens. They're decidedly evil. That's the people creating the policies, the monetary policies we all have to live under. Political and social affairs are all affected profoundly and dramatically by the economic policies that are shoved down our throats. Help people understand that, for crying out loud. Please, for God's sake, for crying out loud. Capitalism by conquest, or how to turn a populace against each other. Regarding carrying our fair share of the weight of the cross for God and man, we need to take time to listen to our loving owner, our Creator God, whom is certainly speaking to us all and seriously wishing we would listen for our own good. Listen to that small, still, quiet voice of the Holy Spirit. It's there for all of us. Knowing for certainty what we perceive to be true about this or that is certainly no guarantee we ourselves will abide by said truth. That's it. Just knowing right from wrong is not in and of itself any guarantee that we're always going to choose to do right. And when we all choose to do stupid things, say stupid things, and believe stupid things, and fall at times, and get engaged in escapism and vices and rebellious nature, and separating ourselves from the Spirit of God that knows that He just wants us to soar. He doesn't want us ever to be weak and fall and have sin in our lives. But yet we all have issues, and being human is hard, and thank God that He understands it. And we have to help others to understand what's going on here and why we're feeling a need to escape from our so-called precious reality that's nothing more than a conjured up nightmare by these evil forces. Yes, we must all carry our fair share of the weight of the cross for each other. This is the easiest way because it is our owner's will. See, going with the will of God is always the easiest way out. All other wills must fail, and so all efforts in the wrong direction will end up having been done in utter vain. Right. It's hard to kick against the goads. It's hard to fight against the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. We, that is the people at large, must determine and resolve to be utterly paying the bills for the tragedies they, the evil-doing, gaggle of money-loving murderers, manufacture, inflict on us. We, that is the people at large. We've got to learn to be done with paying these bills. Like I said earlier about the burden being put on the backs of those that can least afford it, that are least culpable for causing the problems. We've got to be done. We've got to resolve and determine to say no to these people and say, you know what? No, your policies are for the birds. We're not following them. We're going this direction, okay? That's it. End of story. We want real change and we want real progress. Not for some, but for everybody. We've got to be all inclusive here. That includes the least of men. Got to house the homeless, the people at the bottom rung of this thing, or we're never going to find true happiness. Bind the wound on the collective body of humanity where it's hemorrhaging, for crying out loud. Unnatural disasters, high crime, extreme poverty, dubious warfare, national debt, etc., 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 in that theme. These are just a few of the problems that are caused by the people that run the policies that we have to live under. Can you imagine that? And there's no end. These people are insatiable. If they get their way, they will utterly destroy any semblance of a civilized society that we once had. That's it. They've got their COG places. We all know they've got these giant cities under the cities, connecting areas and all this. They figure they could live for decades under there. The science proves that they could. And so if they had their way, they'd nuke the whole planet, get rid of all the plebs, and come up out of ground and just claim it all for themselves. That's how their minds work. They're sick and twisted, evil people. And we've got to just wrap our minds around that. And it's hard because normal, decent, upright people just don't think like that. Okay? We don't want that for humanity. We're not willing. I mean, I'd give up everything. If it meant saving one life, I'd say, God, you've called him. That's it, man. You understand? That's the mindset we've all got to get into. If it means saving one life, I'll give everything, Lord God. That's it, man. And we've all got to feel that pain and say, well, that doesn't feel good. You mean I got to give up everything I own to save one life because God said so? That's the attitude. Even though that's not it. He says he wants 10%. He wants a tithe from us. Give to charity. Give to somebody that's having a harder time than you. Whatever, to break that cheapskate spirit in us. That's all he's asking for. He's not even asking us to give everything. Yes, the rich, he says, yes, you'll have treasure in heaven if you give a lot of that wealth away. So to do this, just make sure it doesn't land in the hands of somebody more evil, because that happens a lot. As I say, if a multi-billionaire spent all their money, it'd go through the economic fabric of society, the economic sluice of society, and it'd wind up in very few pockets again, the way things are set up with crony capitalism.